He was always the quiet Beatle, the one who spoke least, but saw the most. Behind that laid-back smile were wounds left by fame, friendship, and a band that shook the world. And now at 84, Ringo Starr has finally pulled back the curtain on the question fans never stopped asking. What really tore the Beatles apart? And how the truth changes everything we thought we knew. Ringo! Before the fame and before the drums, he was just Richard Starkey. Born July 7th, 1940, in a rough Liverpool neighborhood. His childhood wasn't just tough, it was life-threatening. At 6, a near-fatal infection kept him trapped in a hospital bed for an entire year. By 13, tuberculosis struck, stealing even more of his youth and schooling. Now, most kids might have given up, but not Ringo. And inside those lonely hospital walls, something unexpected began to stir. He began tapping on trays, on cabinets, even on the bed frame, turning his pain into rhythm. And in 1957, a single gift changed everything. His stepfather brought home a beat-up makeshift drum kit. Young Richard Starkey dedicated himself to the drums, pounding out raw rhythms that would carry him from his living room to the world stage. He started with the Eddie Clayton Skiffle Group, and then with Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. You see, Ringo wasn't just keeping time. He was becoming the heartbeat of the local scene. Everybody loved Ringo. And as the teenage fans screamed for Rory Storm, Ringo thought he had already hit the big time. But destiny was about to knock louder than any drum beat.
You took a big risk. You were playing with the Hurricanes.
I was.
And you got a chance to go with this Beatles group.
Yeah, I know.
But the Hurricanes were bigger at the moment.
They were, but I loved from Germany where we met, really. We were playing Rory and the Hurricanes, and the Beatles were playing the different clubs than the guy Koshmi, who owned both of them, put us on the same club. And I loved John, Paul, and George. I just loved that front line. And, you know, we would do at the weekend 12 hours between us. And I'd be there for the last gig, you know, just sitting there watching the front line, requesting songs. Yeah, so then they asked, and I had no hesitation really, but people did say, "Are you going to leave Rory?" And I said, yeah, I'm going to leave. You know, you just make her step up.
I'm interested to know why that was. You liked the group.
I did. I
liked the music.
Yeah, they were great players. They were you know, Rory was a showman, and we were players, and we had a guitarist called Johnny Guitar who was great, but that was about it, really. But we were big in Liverpool, and I just loved them. So, you know, the thing Brian called it was a Wednesday. He said, "Would you join the band?" I said, "Sure." I said, "When?" He said, "Oh, tonight." I said, "No, I can come Saturday because they've got to get another drummer." Because, you know, we're all playing the same songs.
The Beatles didn't just rise, they exploded on Ed Sullivan. 73 million Americans glued to their TVs. And in the eye of the storm, there he was, Ringo Starr, his goofy grin, and his rock-solid timing, turning him into an instant fan favorite. Kids waved buttons, shouted, "I love Ringo," and every scream seemed to echo across the world. Years later, Ringo would recall, "I knew I went over well. All those kids waving for me. It was unbelievable." And it really was unbelievable for Richard Starkey, now known as Ringo Starr, to go from his living room to the Ed Sullivan Show. His beat now wasn't just heard in the living room. It was heard and felt by millions around the world. But behind the flashing cameras and screaming crowds, the price of fame was quietly mounting. By 1966, the screaming tours were over, and behind closed doors, the magic started to fade. Ringo later admitted he felt more like a session player than a Beatle while recording Sgt. Pepper. Paul had total control. John drifted away further, and George's frustration grew louder. And when the pressure reached its breaking point during the White Album sessions, Ringo did the unthinkable. He quit. He walked out. 2 weeks in Sardinia, far from the madness, where he sketched a song that seemed playful on the surface, Octopus's Garden, but beneath its childlike melody was the ache of a man who felt unseen. It was the first real sign that even the most beloved band in the history of rock and roll was quietly falling apart.
I'd like to be underneath the sea.
Yoko's presence changed everything, Ringo said. She wasn't just sitting in the studio, she was woven into the music, the decisions, the dynamics of the band.
And let's face it, we didn't welcome Yoko in the studio.
I know.
Because we thought it was a guy thing.
Yes.
I mean, even the guys' wives and the girlfriends and stuff weren't really welcome in the studio. They could, control room for a quick visit.
Right.
But actually sit in the studio with us, it was like, no, excuse me, we're working.
Did you have the guts to say that to John?
No.
You did not. If you had said
it was kind of obvious, though.
Yes, but weren't you acting out passive-aggressively? You're sitting in the studio, you're just steaming, rather than saying, John, in a kind of a loving way, this is hurting me. I can't work this way to have someone observing. Everyone was just kind of sniping.
We were just fuming.
Right.
Well,
And
John,
sulking and being kind of,
Did John ever say, look, I'm bringing... He didn't ask permission to do it.
No, he didn't. The thing is, it was really just the initial shock of Yoko sitting on one of the amps.
Right.
Excuse me, that's my amp.
Yeah.
She couldn't use a stool.
Oh, I think it would be mind-blowing, Paul.
It was mind-blowing. But later on, we suddenly sort of thought, you know what? John's in love with this girl. If he wants to bring her in the studio, we've got to cope with that. And we learned to cope with it. And, I now feel that he had the right to do that. It might have been better if he'd been a little bit more diplomatic and sort of says, hey, guys, I'd love her to be, I really love her and I just want to be near her all the time.
Right.
But we had to figure that out. And we did eventually, but it took some time, and there was a few looks went on.
For decades, fans blamed Yoko Ono for the breakup of the Beatles. Rumors flew, fingers pointed, but Ringo Starr has finally confirmed what many suspected all along. The Beatles, once a circle of equals, suddenly had sides. John and Yoko, and the rest. The sessions turned bitter. Trust cracked. Arguments got personal. We weren't a band anymore, Ringo admitted. We were strangers. And as the cameras rolled on Let It Be, the dream that had conquered the world was quietly unraveling, note by note, beat by beat. August 1969 would be the last time all four Beatles stepped into a studio together. Although no one knew it at the time, this would be their final chapter. By September, John quietly announced he was leaving. The band tried to keep it together, but the cracks were too deep. And in April of 1970, Paul made it official. The dream was over. Ringo later reflected, it felt like watching a family divorce in slow motion. Every note, every harmony. A reminder of what they once were and what they lost, and really what we all lost. And yet, even as the Beatles ended, Ringo's story and his music was far from finished.
Growing all the time, it don't come easy. Oh.
While Lennon and McCartney battled headlines and old wounds, Ringo Starr took a different path, one built on joy, rhythm, and connection. His solo hits at Don't Come Easy and Photograph proved he could shine on his own, and the all-star band tours, legendary, packed with laughter, camaraderie, and a love of music that audiences felt in every note. Unlike many rock stars, Ringo never tried to be larger than life. He didn't chase fame or critics. He chased connections, letting the music and the joy speak for itself. And decades later, at 84, he would reflect on a life that wasn't just about the Beatles. It was about that rhythm and all the laughs and all the moments that truly mattered. In 2018, the world watched as Prince William knighted him Sir Ringo Starr. For the kid from Liverpool, it had certainly been a long and winding road.
Last week, Paul and I had dinner in LA together, and we were talking about from Liverpool to here. I mean, you know, it's like mad.
Beyond the stage, Ringo is a father and a grandfather, and of course, a keeper of the Beatles' heartbeat. From meditating quietly to sharing laughs with Barbara Bach, his wife, and spending time with his son Zach, music runs through every generation of his family. He overcame addiction. He found peace. And now at 84, he speaks his truth, not to assign blame, but to honor a past filled with music, love, and lessons learned. Because when Ringo Starr tells his story, it's not just history. It's the rhythm of life that changed the world, the soundtrack of our lives. Ringo Starr never had to be the loudest Beatle to be unforgettable. He was the pulse behind every song, the humor in every tension, the heart that kept a band of legends grounded. Through decades of fame, conflict, and change, he carried the rhythm and the memories of it all. Perhaps he's the only one who still feels the full weight of what they lost, and yet he carries it with grace, laughter, and love.
All that period when people were blaming you for the breakup of the Beatles.
Well, you know, I've been blamed, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 years now.
You were aware of that going on? You were aware that's what
I was
people were
fully
saying?
aware of it because it was like they was jabbing me all the time.
But what if the Beatles themselves saw it differently? In rare interviews, we get to hear Paul, George, and Ringo reflecting on that time. Not to point fingers, but to actually take blame off of Yoko. To them, the split wasn't about one woman. It was about four grown men growing apart. Hearing it in their own voices, Paul with his calm reflection, George with his quiet honesty, and Ringo on the radio. It's a reminder that history isn't always the story we think we know.
Eventually, you even came to say that you feel Yoko was instrumental in John's solo career because the inspiration for Imagine and all of that, you feel came from Yoko, that that was his muse, so to speak.
I think so. I think, you know, with the Beatles, we came full circle. And so when we broke up, it was the right time for us to break up.
You were young guys. You needed to go off on your own.
And he'd found, as you say, Yoko, his muse, and she was taking him in a completely new direction.
Right.
Sort of avant-garde, all stuff we'd liked, all stuff we'd admired in other people, but suddenly he had a ride on this bus.
If you and John and Yoko do meet, though, you're not really gritting your teeth.
No, we're good friends.
Yeah. Well, all of that about her being the problem with the group, is that slightly silly that one woman could be so much of a problem?
No, the group had problems long before Yoko came along. Many problems, folks.
The wives and the girlfriends never came to the studio. That was where we were together. And I think that's why we worked so well, because there was just the four of us and there was no outside influence, unless we brought it in, like, you know, someone to come down and play on it, or Mick could flash past for an hour or so because he had nothing to do or whatever, you know, those things. But basically it was just the four of us recording, and it was intense, you know, and dramatic, and we were trying to get the record done the best we could. We'd do one track for a week, you know. It takes a week to do one track, just the backing track sometimes. So we all got a bit weird, and you know, I was wondering what was happening one day. So I was saying to John, what is going on here? You're always together all the time. It's freaking me out a bit. What's happening? And he told me what they were trying to do. It's nothing to do with you, the listening public. But he told me what they were doing. So then I was fine after that. I thought, oh, well, okay. I mean, that's how he wants to do it. That's fine with me. And then I sort of relaxed a lot around Yoko. So I think she's hysterical.
Eventually, you even came to say that you feel Yoko was instrumental in John's solo career because the inspiration for Imagine and all of that, you feel came from Yoko, that was his muse, so to speak.
I think so. I think, with the Beatles, we came full circle. And so when we broke up, it was the right time for us to break up.
You were young guys. You needed to go off on your own.
And he'd found, as you say, Yoko, his muse. And she was taking him in a completely new direction.
Right.
Sort of avant-garde, all stuff we'd liked, all stuff we'd admired in other people, but suddenly he had a ride on this bus.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because Yoko, you've even been called the Dragon Lady, who the lady who brought the Beatles apart and took them all apart. I have trouble with English.
Can we please give her the credit for all the nice music that George made and Ringo made and Paul made and I've made since they broke up? If she did it.
That's true. And now,
it turned out all right, didn't it?
Anyway, but you're aware of that. I mean, that the press always saw you as the wedge that was driven in. And I can drive a wedge in 3 places or whatever, how many spaces there are between 4 people. But that was the. There are millions of girls who would love to have met, let alone married, one of the 4, any one of the 4 probably, but certainly a lot of them.
Well, I resent to think of him as one of the 4,
Yeah.
I mean, or any one of the 4, etc. Because I just met him as another artist and all that, and I didn't, particularly realize that part of it really.
You were a Beatles fan before, or would you say you were a Lennon fan before?
Neither.
Neither. Didn't care for either of them?
She didn't really know about it.
No,
the only
I
name
didn't
she
know.
knew was Ringo, because it means apple in Japanese. That's all. Ringo means apple.
Ringo means apple.
Yeah.
Did you know that when you named your company Apple?
No.
Oh. It was just one of those happy accidents.
Just one of those happy apples, yes. Anyway, she didn't split the Beatles, because how could one girl split the Beatles, or one woman, The Beatles were drifting apart on their own,
Can you remember when you realized that it was inevitable that you would split up?
No. It's like saying, did you remember falling in love? Not quite, just sort of happens.
She certainly didn't break the group up. The group was breaking up, and I think she attracted John so much to another way of life. I think we would have all continued the Beatles, but Yoko came along. John fell wildly in love with her. He needed a big change in his life, and he got it. He came to live in New York. He kind of threw over all his English contacts and everything, and I can't blame him. That's what he wants to do in his life. So we had to kind of fade into the background to allow them to have their relationship. What are we going to do, ringing him up? Hey, John, hey, come and see me. Leave Yoko. That obviously never going to happen. I thought she was a hard woman. I don't think she is now. I think she's just the opposite. I think she's a very loving, caring woman. I thought she was pushy, which I think's wrong. I don't think she is. I think she's just herself. She's determined more than some other people to be herself.
3, 2, 1. Peace and love, everybody. Peace and love. Thank you for joining in. Peace and love.
Some fans will never forgive Yoko Ono. To them, she'll always be the villain. But when we listen to the words of Paul, George, and Ringo, and yes, John himself, maybe the ending wasn't about one person. Maybe it was about destiny. Maybe the truth isn't about blame. It's about 4 young lads from Liverpool who gave us the soundtrack of our lives and simply couldn't be expected to carry it forever. Be honest, has your mind changed? Was Yoko really to blame, or is it time we finally let her off the hook? Now it's your turn to weigh in. Tell us, what do you think in the comments? what really tore the Beatles apart. Until next time, we'll see you on the radio.